Welcome to another edition of Survival Mode. It's the deep dive that we're going into right on this step number 2, vet the vision. Michael, that was a great idea of coming up with vet the vision. I love that. Love that. Oh my goodness. All right. Now, we talked about in episode 5 of step number 2, can your vision operate like a business? Well, we didn't get into about how to classify that business. Okay, Michael, how do we classify a business?
Well, you classify the business based upon how the government understands that business to operate. So we have to follow the rules. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to do this business, but it's not going to be like the rest of these business. But the operational structure should be like these other businesses because if the government can't identify your business, they're not going to allow you to open. And or if you open, you're going to have issues later on because you're going to have to explain to them who you are and what you're doing. Okay, so you want to follow the North American Industry Classification System coding system. All right, that's going to specify how your business is identified and organized based upon the industry. Okay, so when you're a restaurant, all restaurants have the same code. All beauty salons have the same code. All retail stores, if it's based upon clothing, have the same code. And this is how the government identifies your business and properly positions you and place you for their recordings and their records.
Why don't you just tell them that probably positions them to tax you the way the business needs to be taxed?
That's the
Okay.
second way.
That's not the only thing, because based on what your industry is, your requirements legally change.
Well, yes, I know.
So if you're,
I'm thinking about the money, Kevin.
Yes, but if you're a bar and you register as a restaurant, your requirements are different. The health department is a completely different set of standards. So you got to be classified as the right thing, or basically, if you are a bar, you're going to have to satisfy some health codes that you wouldn't have to because you're not actually a restaurant. And so you don't want to get yourself into trouble that way. Or maybe there's classification, there's requirements for a bar that don't apply to a restaurant, but you're not doing those things because you don't even know, because you register for the wrong industry.
And let me say this, Bert, before I know you're about to say something. I got to say this. And here's the key thing. What you don't know can and will hurt you. I personally know of a business that did what Kevin is talking about, and several of those people actually got arrested because they needed an alcohol license. You cannot sell alcohol without an alcohol license. Okay, and so if you don't understand these laws, and Bert, you mentioned this in the show, you need to ask and call the proper authorities and ask them, what do I need? This is what I'm thinking about doing. They will tell you.
It's funny how you say that somebody got arrested. Remember, you're dealing with federal laws and state laws, and you have to be. We talked about it on the show. You have to be legally compliant. If you're not legally compliant, you're going to lose. It's a lose-lose situation. Okay, and doing things under the table, please let that go. Okay, bartering can be a great things, but if you don't document what you're doing, it'll screw you up. All right, now let's get into episode 6, and we were talking about, is it going to work? I mean, what are the requirements necessary for our business to work? One thing that we didn't touch on, we talked about the capital, but we didn't get into the different resources and infrastructure requirements. Now, resources. What does that mean to you, Michael?
Resources are anything that has to be exchanged in some aspect for whatever you need or whatever you desire.
Right.
Okay. So resources could be money, but it also could be material. It could be equipment. Um, anything that's tangible falls under resources, I believe. Even intellectual things, like things you can't touch, like time. That's a resource. So anything that has value should be classified as resource, and it should be actually quantified and how you actually utilize it or how you identify if you need it or not.
Now we talk about infrastructure requirements. Let's get into that one.
Okay, so when you talk about infrastructure, you're talking about the things that helps to position me to prosper and or to do business. So think about it. If you have a restaurant, you need a restaurant. You need a kitchen. You need a full. You need a kitchen based upon your menu. You need front of the house space if you're going to do that. If you're a takeout restaurant only, then you need a system in place to make sure that you can actually serve the food and make sure you box it up and send it out. So bottom line is, whatever you're doing, you need a supporting infrastructure to support that. And so your
Exactly.
job is identify it properly.
Now, we talked about marketing analysis on the show, but we're going to get into, Kevin, we're going to get to that economic climate and conditioning. Now, the economic climate, what does that mean to you?
Well, whatever's going on in the economy at that time is extremely important. How sensitive is your business to economic downturns and upswings? You can, for instance, we're running an inflation rate over 8% at this point. Well, what does that mean for your business? So if you're a restaurant, the price of beef specifically is really going up. If you're a steakhouse specifically, you already know you got an issue with the price of beef. Chicken's not going up quite as quickly. Maybe you're more of a general restaurant that's serving different kinds of food, where maybe you, I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous perhaps, but maybe you want to center more dishes around chicken currently because of what the economy is doing. I mean, that may not be where you want to go, but it might be a consideration at the same time. I will tell you, when the supply chains were really bad, I went to a restaurant. They did not serve beef at lunch because it was spotty on when they got beef, and they could only get so much at a time. So they reserved that for their dinner menu. Now, it was very disappointing because I happen to like the beef dishes that they serve. I went there for lunch. I couldn't get them. And the dinner prices are higher. I like to go at lunch because they're lower. There's these different considerations. But they made the choice that they would serve the beef for dinner time. Well, guess what? I went back at dinner time because I couldn't get it for lunch. You have to make decisions, and it's going to be based on the economy. Now, when you're opening a business, look at the economy. Is your business too sensitive to the economy that maybe this may not be the right time because inflation is so high? When inflation starts coming down, maybe it's a better choice. I don't know. It depends on what business you're trying to get into. Again, you need to look at so many things as a business owner, because if your business is sensitive to interest rates are going up. How does that affect you?
So that's a marketing analysis thing that I need to do then.
Market
When things
analysis
change.
is so much stuff.
I just wanted to make sure we understood. All right, now we're going to get into, while we're vetting our vision, episode 7, we talked about can we make it work? Something that we didn't go into, or we went into it, but I think it's important to talk about. You don't have to have everything in place right now, because the development of your business model will help you get structure. It will help you get organized. It will help you get prepared. It will help you get positioned for success. Kevin, Michael, how important is that to understand that when you are a beginning entrepreneur?
Let me take that, Kev, first, and then you can jump on it. I think that is the foundational principle to everything. I think that is so let me go in more detail. first you got to identify if you got to identify your personal sustainability. You have to be able to develop this business model without it affecting your life, your family, your job, whatever the case may be. Secondly, if you are able to properly develop the business model and invest into the business model development, that alone will position you to not, I don't want to say not fail, but your risk has went down so much because you are identifying, analyzing, and assessing everything before you invest everything else. You see, so a lot of people don't understand this step is, I think this step is most important. I believe this is the step as to why 90% plus businesses fail. They haven't vetted the vision properly.
Let me interject something on that. And
Okay.
people like numbers. People like numbers. Now we say 90% of them fail. But if I believe that if you go through this step right here, you knock yourself at, instead of 90, you put yourself at a 50-50 chance of success. Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's just in the development and the getting the information aspect of it. Kevin, would you agree with that?
Oh, I wanted to jump on this. So I've met people who say they have an idea for business and they just have to do this, and this. That's all in their head. That's what they need to do. And they do those things and they get their business started. But then they kind of flounder about because they didn't think about all these other things that pop up. And they might, and their business might be successful down the road, but the odds aren't with them at this point. They're really not with them because, and that was the other thing, the fact that we keep saying you got to document it. I mean, in my head, I have a picture of what I want to do and I can follow it through and it might turn out good. It might not, but if I wrote it all down, but I will tell you right now, for someone who thinks like I do, as I write things down, I start thinking about other things. And those other things are things I would not have thought about if I wasn't writing it down. And by the way, I do want to correct one thing that Bert said. Bert said people like numbers. People hate numbers, by the way. Very few of us like numbers. People say they like numbers. They don't like numbers. They like the feeling that those numbers give them. And most people who quote stats don't know anything about stats. They just heard a number somewhere and they throw it out there. They don't understand numbers. I mean, that's just what part of it is. So as we're documenting what we're doing, while you may not like numbers, you have to use numbers. One of the things Michael said during the show was that you have to make decisions based on facts. If we don't have facts, we have nothing because we're going to base everything on feelings. Now, unless your business has to, well, actually, I'll even correct myself on this one. What I was going to say was if your entire business is based on feelings, your business could succeed if you make your decisions on feelings. That's not true. That's completely not true. The business itself is the structure so that you can do your business that's based on feelings.
There you go.
Like, for instance, a psychologist, that's all about the inner workings of the mind and the feelings and all that. But the business that works inside of that psychologist has to be able to make money in order to keep the office running, in order to keep the secretaries and everybody who works there, to keep them all employed. That structure is outside of feelings. That's all based on facts.
And continue to have those facts, be responsible and be realistic. But all of this research, all of this due diligence should help you do a thorough assessment of your vision to determine if you should move forward in turning your vision into a business model. That's important. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what you said. You mentioned be realistic and make sure that well, let me jump on realistic first. When we say realistic, we're not talking about can the vision be successful? Most people are going to say yes. Whatever they want to do is going to be successful. What we're talking about when we say be realistic in your starting point, identifying who you are. As we mentioned in the show, your SWOT analysis. SWOT, that's SWOT, your strengths, your weaknesses, your oppositions or opportunities, and the threats. When you identify these things, it really positions you to be realistic in where am I and how far do I need to go to get there. And that place called there is considered to be success for you.
That's your destiny. That's your destiny right there.
That's the other D. That's right. So
that's your destiny.
I just wanted to throw that out there, and I wanted to touch on realistic more so than any the other R, because you need to be responsible. You can't invest what you can't lose. And most people know that, because if they work a good job and they have a nice house, they don't want to jeopardize that house. They work too hard for that. So most people understand about being responsible, being realistic. People, when somebody say, you know what, I want to start a multi-million-dollar business, somebody next to them, a family member, mom, or whatever, say, you can't do that. Be realistic. Well, what's realistic is nobody's ever done it around me, and I need to do my due diligence. I need to make sure that I properly plan, prepare, and position for that type of business to make a multi millions of dollars. That means it's not impossible, but the likelihood of it happening is a little less than somebody else who have a mentor or a dad or an uncle who has done it before. So being realistic is not about can it happen, it's about really identifying your starting point, and then you will know how hard you have to work to get there.
Okay, I want to jump in on that too. When we talk about being realistic, one of the things that you said during the show, Michael, was you have to be able to sustain while you're building your structure. Now, that can mean you have to have enough money to get through that period of time. What a lot of people seem to forget sometimes is maybe you have to keep your full-time job while you're building your structure. Maybe that's how you can sustain yourself while you're building that business structure. Now, if you have plenty of capital backing you up, maybe you don't need to, and you can really go, you can put all your time into building that business. But if that's not the case, maybe keeping that full-time job for now is what you need to do while you build some of that structure. And when you get to a place further down the road, maybe that's the time to quit the job. But this is the point of being realistic.
Be transparent and truthful with yourself concerning your current circumstance, your situation, and your resources. And that will help you determine the starting point while you properly position you to start. And you got to reverse engineer the process. We'll have more of the deep dive again with the next episode. You all have a good one. Thanks for watching Survival Mode.
Now that you've listened to the deep dive, maybe you still have more questions. Hit us up at hello@survivalmode.live. Ask your questions. We will answer any questions that come in. We will help you along. We'll leave some contact info if you can, so that we can contact you and help talk you through whatever your question might be.